first thing I want to know is how you got into racing.
Well, I always kind of had an interest in racing, and I don't know, my family went go-karting a lot, and I was always
Your
like
family
not to
did what
brag,
a
but
lot, Corey?
we went go-karting a lot, like when I was a kid, when we went on vacation, and I was always pretty good. I had natural knack for it, and I just got inspired by the world of racing, and then really in COVID, I had some downtime, and I was thinking, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to go to college? Do I want to get a degree? Like, what do I want to do? And racing kept popping up in my head, so I was like, that's kind of what I want to do with my life.
From go-karting to racing, that's not a stretch?
Well, go-karting it really depends on what type. This was more public, like 15, 20 mile per hour things, 15, 20 mile per hour go-karts.
Yeah.
But people do racing karts, and that's really how most people get into the world of racing. But I didn't really go through that stage. I went straight into the Formula 4 car rather.
What made you take that leap?
Well, it's more of a timing and an age thing because, I mean, even though I'm 17, I still am about even to maybe a tiny bit late on getting in the Formula 4 car. So you just got a lot of racers are really young, and the reason for that is race teams need people with the quickest reflexes possible and good good endurance and don't tire out easily. So they need young people. But in order to get to a full, high stage racing, you have to go through a process, and that takes a lot of time. So it's best to start young. So by the time you get into the highest rank, you're as young as you can be.
Okay, best to start young. Makes sense. And
So in Formula 4, at least in America, people are around my age. We have 16, 17. But the minimum age allowance is 15. So if you're under 15, which we have a couple kids who are, you're allowed to race the cars, just not with the same group. You have to race with your own group. Because see, in America, we have IndyCar, which is like our Formula 1, I guess. And in Europe, they have Formula 1, which is like the pinnacle of motorsport. So most Formula 1 drivers, you'll hear that they started go-karting from age 4 or 6. So they're so young, and they're driving go-karts that go 70, 80 miles an hour. Or I have two options that I can do. Either I could go to Europe and do Formula 3. See, I'm trying to go to IndyCar.
so our equivalent in the US of Formula One is the IndyCar, you said?
It's pretty close comparison, yes.
Okay.
We have a similar system to Formula 1 and IndyCar. We've had some people before in the U.S. who go over to European Formula 3 or Formula 2 because they get offers.
Okay.
So it really depends how good you are. It depends on how you see your career, because
yes.
in Europe, you have a little bit more competitiveness because there's a lot more countries. Because you have even the whole world goes to Europe for Formula 1, and only really Americans go for IndyCar. They're just, keep going.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best, and I hope that one day we will see you exactly where you want to be. What are the steps that one would take if one wants to pursue this sort of path?
Well, we had an interesting scenario because it's kind of I don't want to say like hidden society, but it's hard to get into. It's hard to find the right connections. But my mom's friend's son, he races Formula 4. His name's Joe Ostholthoff. And he taught me starting early February 2022, starting on my simulator. And he's still teaching me. And he helped get me into Formula 4, and he set me up with the team. And yeah, so he's a racing kid. He's had tons of experience. And he's trying to help me a little bit get into the sport.
Awesome. Really good. Okay, so you talk about teams, I hear. Tell me about these teams.
You don't have to be on a team, but it is a lot more affordable and easy because the team, basically, you hand them, they charge a certain fee, and they'll take care of everything. Operating under someone like Jay Howard, he was an IndyCar driver. He drove IndyCar for, I think it was 4 seasons, and he's done all sorts of racing experience for his whole life. He gives them really great insight, and It's 2023 F4 US Championship.
2023. Okay. When is that taking place?
The first race just happened at NOLA Motorsports Park down in New Orleans. That was pretty fun. I had a couple great races, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that if you want to.
Of course.
So we have 18 races over the week. 18 races over the year
Okay.
at 6 different locations. So we have 3 races per location.
In the Drivers' Championship, you're up against everyone, including members of your own team.
Yes, ma'am, and that leads sometimes to some really fierce competition, but luckily we've started off the year in a decently peaceful manner compared to prior years. There's not a lot of beef going on in the field right now. Everyone's kind of chilling out. And car factor is really, really important this year because next year the regulations change completely.
Oh, is that right?
We have to purchase all new cars for every driver anymore.
I didn't realize that moving up those levels also meant more powerful and faster cars.
Yes, ma'am. The IndyCar, which is the top rung of the ladder, has between 600 and 800 horsepower, depending on where it is, and it goes to a top speed of 240 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness gracious!
So really, really fast cars, and those cars cost about $1 million, 1.2 million, something to make the car.
Wow.
And ours cost about 70,000. It's a really big difference.
So this is not a cheap sport, Dane.
No, it's not. That's why sponsorship's incredibly vital to anyone succeeding in the sport.
Your car experiences. Have you had any spin outs or any weird mishaps with your car in your practices or in any of your races? And when you do that, are you prepared? Do you know how to handle it? Do you know what to do?
Yes, ma'am. I've had a couple of things. So the first time I actually ever went out on track, and I was extremely embarrassed by this, it was a little bit wet out on track. Huge wet patch, and I went straight into a wall at about 60 miles an hour.
Oh my goodness.
It didn't hurt anything though, and that's good because the belts are skin tight. So like everything's really, packed in there. Everything's really compressed, and you can't really move around a lot. So you're just kind of stuck in there, and you don't get hurt too easily. But if you're really pushing the car, if you're on that limit, if you're trying to find that extra lap time, you're probably going to spin because because the limit's coming where, your car's about to spin out. You're barely getting it under control. You're almost pooping your pants into the corner because you're like, I'm going to hit a wall. I'm going to hit a wall. Basically, you're afraid the whole time. That's how you know you've had a good lap time. You get used to it eventually, but you're holding on for dear life because you're like, I'm not going to make this. I'm never going to make this.
What do you call them? Accidents, near close call? What do you call them?
We just call them, accidents, spins. Sometimes we like to call people, like lawn workers or whatever, like gardeners if they're out mowing the grass, getting spinning around in the grass. We call them lawn workers or gardeners. It's really funny. Part of racing is picking fun at people in kind of a fun way.
I was wondering if someone is sponsoring you, who are they normally? Who are they? Big corporations? Could it be an individual person? What does it usually look like?
It can really be anyone, however they want to do it. My dad's sponsoring right now, and my mom's sponsoring, and we have his company plastered all along the car. It's not in that picture behind you because he wasn't sponsoring yet, but we have them all over the car.
What is your dad's company?
Sorry?
What is your dad's company?
Guardian.
Guardian.
Guardian, and they do medical stuff. He's just developing it right now. It hasn't been released yet.
Okay. So you talked about your sponsors' names or company names going on the car, and you can even make it big or small according to how much their contribution is. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, we can. We can size it up a lot, and we can get it to cover like the whole side of the car. We can repaint the car different colors.
Oh.
So it really depends. We're basically looking for around $5,000 to put anything on the car. And it also comes with other benefits, like you get some of our merchandise. We have things called paddock passes, so you basically get a lanyard. And you're allowed to come into the paddock, so you're allowed to come up to the garages and get in the car. And
You mean they can get in the car for a photo op?
yeah, they can get in the car for a photo op, and they come behind the scenes. They meet the team owner, they meet all the pit crew. They can ask questions if they want to. So
Very cool.
another good thing about that, we run with a lot of different events and other cars. So you not only get to see our cars, you get to see like the whole field. You get to see hundreds of different cars. I don't know. I feel like I've always had that urge ever since I was like a little kid. I've always like I watched IndyCar and NASCAR with my grandpa all the time, and I'd be like, "That's really cool. I kind of want to go do that." I feel like that was really set into place in 2017 when my mom brought me to the Indy 500. So you lose about a pound or two in sweat every single race just because of how much you're sweating the whole time. Because it's just because of the long sleeves. It's covering your skin.
How you stay race ready.
So I don't know. There's a lot of superstition that goes into racing, and I'm trying to stay out of that because I know people who have to like snap 5 times on their left hand, snap 4 times with their right hand, clip their heels together, and like spin around twice before getting in the car because they think that's what it is. So a big part of it's getting that aggressive mindset because you don't want to be fueled by anger and blinded by anger because then you overdrive the car and you make a mistake and you're in a wall, or you hit someone and you're both out of the race. That could end your whole weekend.
Right.
So you just missed, a sixth of the season.
Not only do you have to familiarize yourself with the car, like you said, each car has its own little quirks, but also each track.
Yes, for example, last corner of Sebring, there's a bump. And if you don't hit that bump exactly the right way, your car is probably going to spin around. Being on your toes and knowing how to control the car. So, yes, it is difficult, but it's also hasn't been paved over for a reason because it separates the people who don't know what they're doing from the people who do actually know what they're doing.
You get to practice on each track before you go, right?
Yes, ma'am. So in the race weekend itself, we have 2 hours and 15 minutes of on-track practice, designated on-track practice. So that's a decent bit, but unfortunately, a lot of people that get caught in gravel, so they have to close the session. So they have to close the track for 10 minutes. That's 5 laps that we could have gotten in. That's so much progress that's just wasted.
Right.
So they have to close the track. People hit walls sometimes. And it's a field of 31 cars, so it's a lot of cars. Mistakes happen quite often.
Yeah.
But the great thing is, at least my team does and a couple other teams do, we test. And what that means is the team will go rent out a track for the day. They'll buy the whole track for the day, or 2 or 3 days sometimes. And you basically get unlimited time. You go out whenever you want in the car, just drive laps.
Okay.
And that's what I did at New Orleans back in early February because it's super valuable for racing tracks.
How about your simulator sessions?
The simulator sessions, so I have a program called iRacing, and that program has my car on it. So what I'll do, we'll go to a track that we're racing, and my friends and I will get on there, we'll practice laps. They have a really good AI system, artificial intelligence, that will put in with us. And we'll put the hostility way up, so they're banging wheels and we're having to fight a lot. So it gets us really good practice on that track and with other cars and moving through the field. And also, back to kind of like the workouts thing, the simulator is kind of a workout because we have this big black box called a direct drive, and it has my steering wheel on the end of it. And you can crank that up to where it's about 120 pounds of just turning force.
When you're racing, Dane, who are you communicating with? You have what, an ear, some kind of headset on? How are you able to communicate, and with whom are you communicating?
So we have we have basically ear molds. So they poured wax into our ears and molded it. They poured wax into our ears, and that basically blocks out the sound because you're in a race car, you're right by the engine. It's extremely loud without earphones, but in the car it's only about only about 20, 30 decibels in your ears, very quiet. And then they have this wire that goes through the mold, and it goes and the wire plugs into your helmet. The helmet plugs into this cord behind you that you can't see, and you press this small green button on the steering wheel, and that allows you to talk through your helmet's microphone to your engineer. So the engineer has all the timings up, and he'll update you, and then also he'll talk to you. He'll give you encouragement sometimes, say you need to be like you need to do this corner better, but not a lot of conversation during the race. And also the team boss will talk to you sometimes. Jay will talk to you. He's like, "Good job, keep up the pace. Help us into the car and fasten all our belts, get our mirrors fixed, steering wheels on, start the car up, make sure everything's good." So we each get our own engineer, and they help us with that. And that's basically how it's done. They just communicate with you. You're assigned one person.
That's so good because I pictured a terrible scenario like air traffic control. If you ever listen to them, they're talking to multiple
Yeah, exactly.
people. That is not a good idea. Okay, so good. You have your own devoted engineer, and what's he doing? It's usually a he, I'm gonna guess.
They're all he's.
Okay, so is this guy sitting in the stands looking at everything, or is he looking at a computer monitor and talking to you? How is he sort of gathering his information?
Team has a small trolley or cart that they have computers on, and the team boss and his assistants will sit on the cart, and my engineer will pull up his phone and see all the data on his phone.
It sounds like you're well taken care of, which is nice. That's part of
Yeah.
being on a team, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Well, I have learned so much about racing, and it's all thanks to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time.
It's
This
my
means a lot.
pleasure, and I wish you continued success on your journey, and hopefully this will get the word out for you and maybe draw in some good sponsors for you too.
Hopefully.